Shunavadi Paschachade Shatarane. Hare Krishna. So forgive my a little bit. I think my camera is a little blurry or some problem with the reception. I'm actually taking this from Delhi, India, and the lightning is not not the best. It's more or less most of the light is behind me, so I'm falling in the shadows. Hopefully next time I have this fixed. So uh, we will we'll begin with the presentations of group 4, 5, and 6 on chapter 17. Following that, we can have a discussion, any question answers on the 17th chapter. And I would conclude with an overview of the 18th chapter, the last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So whenever group 4 is ready, we can start with the presentation.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Um, Today's our topic is what is the destination of those who follow some rules of the scriptures but not the scriptures. Arjuna's questions to Krishna. In the chapter 16th, Krishna made the distinction between the divine and demonic nature. The divine follows the scriptures, but demonic do not follow the scriptures. Arjuna thinks that there may be a class of people who are in between divine and demoniac, who follow some rules that are not mentioned in the scriptures, but act in a way that is following the scriptures. So, what will be the destination of those? Krishna's answers to Arjuna. Some activities are recommended in the scriptures for those in the mood of goodness, passion, and ignorance. If one is acting according to the scriptural injunction, he will be purified of that mode and make progress. A person who is in the mode of ignorance follow these injunctions, then he will eventually be purified and move to the mode of passion. As long as one's faith is not completely purified, the faith is subject to contamination by modes of material nature. If a person is simply performing activities according to the moods, they will always move downwards. Key verses relevant to the destination. Faith influenced by the gunas. Krishna states that people worship with faith arising from the three modes of material nature. Spiritual evolution. One's mode exists based on manifested behavior. Sattva. Faith leads to spiritual advancement. Rajas. Faith is self-centered and leads to temporary material rewards. Tamas. Faith is misplaced, leading to degradation and harm. Those who follow the rules with Rajasic and Tamasic faith aim at material or destructive goals, and their destinations correspond to the nature of their faith. Sacrifices without scriptural guidance. Krishna describes sacrifices and actions. Sacrifices without proper adherence to scriptures lead to no spiritual progress. Sattvic, performed selflessly following scriptural injunctions, lead to purification and liberation. Rajasic, done for the material gains or recognition, leads to temporary rewards but binds one to the cycle of birth and death. Tamasic, performed without scriptural guidance or faith, lead to lower states of existence. Charity without proper understanding. Sattvic, given selflessly, who with no expectation of return and to worthy person at a proper time, leads to spiritual growth. Rajasic, given with ulterior motives or for recognition, leads to temporary material benefits. Tamasic, given improperly or without care, leads to adverse outcomes.
Without proper understanding. Mode based on what we eat. Sattvika, food in the mode of goodness, juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. Rajasic, mode in the mode of fashion. Ex- excessively bitter, sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry, and burning. Tamasic, Food in the mode of ignorance, stale, tasteless, putrid, decomposition, remnants of untouchable things. Austerity without proper understanding. Austerities. Austerity of body, worship of the Lord, the Brahmanas and superiors. Cleanliness, simplicity, celibacy, non-violence. Austerity of speech, truthful, pleasing, beneficial, not hesitating others, reciting Vedas. Austerity of mind, satisfaction, gravity, self-control, and purification. Austerities in modes, sattva, perform out of transcendental faith, not expecting material benefits, but only engaged for the sake of the supreme. Rajas, perform out of the pride, to gain respect, honor, and worship. Tamas, perform out of foolishness with self-torture or to destroy or injure others. Destination of such people. For Rajasic adherence, following some rules with selfish motives or desires lead to temporary rewards, such as material prosperity or residence in higher planetary systems, Swarga. However, they eventually fall back to the material plane. For Tasmic adherence, actions performed without understanding, with harmful intentions, or in ignorance lead to lower states of existence, causing further degradation. Without faith, if action lack faith or devoid of the true purpose of scriptures, they bear no spiritual fruit and leave the person entangled in the cycle of birth and death. Conclusion. Krishna emphasizes that partial adherence to scriptures without proper understanding, faith, or surrender leads to temporary or adverse destinations. Only by people, the essence of scriptures, guided by sattvic faith and devotion, can one attain liberation, moksha. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you. Right on time and comprehensive, short, to the point. I like the fact that you gave so many references. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, can you see my screen?
Yeah, you can see your screen.
Hare Krishna, everyone. So we are group 5. Our topic for today is illustrate with examples how acting in the mode of goodness is possible only by following the scriptures. So today's presentation is in the format of a conversation between the two devotees. So I am joined by Naval Krishna Prabhu. Uh, so Naval Krishna Prabhu, would you like to start?
Uh, Hare Krishna Prabhu. I feel that it is important to be good and do good rather than consulting any scripture.
To good and be good, one must first of all know what is mode of goodness. When one is whimsical, one can be influenced by material modes like goodness, passion, or darkness, which contaminate the heart, depending upon the past activities. Otherwise, mode of goodness will not be sustainable.
Why non-scriptural goodness is not sustainable?
So, depending on past conditioning, the mode in which our heart is situated keeps fluctuating in different modes. And for sustainable goodness, scriptural adherence is mandatory.
So how to come to the mood of goodness?
So we need to understand by examples what is mode of goodness, how it is attained, and how it is different from other modes.
We all have to take some food, do some austerity, indulge in some sacrifice, and perform charity. Are these also classified as per the modes?
Yes, and to have a happy and purposeful life, we must be at least in mode of goodness and then transcend it, which is possible only by following scriptures.
I never realized that something as innocuous as food can also affect our sustainability with respect to the mood of goodness.
Yes, food influences health, duration of life, and mental purity. Consuming food in line with Bhagavad Gita helps one stay in the mode of goodness. Foods like milk products, fruits, vegetable, rice, and wheat are dear to those in the mode of goodness. Food offered with devotion, known as prasadam, is the best as it is considered transcendental and purified.
What foods should be avoided for maintaining goodness?
Foods that are decomposed, stale, and not fresh, as well as remnants not offered to the Lord, should be avoided.
Apart from food, you told that Lord Krishna categorizes sacrifices also as per the modes. How should sacrifices be performed according to the mode of goodness?
Sacrifices should be performed as a matter of duty without expecting any material benefit and in accordance with scriptural injunctions. Sacrifices in the mode of goodness are offered with the intention of showing respect to the Supreme Lord, while those in the mode of passion are performed for material benefits such as attaining heavenly pleasures or wealth. Unlike food and other items, sacrifice can only be in good mode of goodness when there is adherence to scriptures. Mantras must be chanted as per Vedic injunctions. Prasadam must be distributed. Remuneration to priest must be there.
What if someone desires material gain and recreation by doing sacrifices?
Worshipping with the intent to gain material benefits is not recommended in scriptures. This practice places one in the mode of passion and leads to temporary rewards. It produces a demoniac mentality and does not benefit the society.
How can good health for the body be attained?
Good health is attained by following austerities and penances prescribed in the scriptures. They include offering respect to God, demigods, brahmanas, spiritual masters, and elders, as well as cleansing oneself internally and externally.
Do scriptures make some prohibitions also for good health?
One should avoid activities not sanctioned by the scriptures, such as indulging in sex outside of marriage. Scriptures provides guidance on respectful behavior, celibacy, and self-discipline, which leads to physical and spiritual well-being.
If I can attain good health without subscribing to Bhagavad Gita, what is wrong in that?
One will not know what to do with the good health. He will pridefully indulge in practices that will destroy health and will not know do that. Let us say a strong man disregards the principle of celibacy. Gradually, he will contract venereal diseases and will be ostracized from the society.
Many times people get agitated when I speak, which is not mode of goodness behavior. How can I avoid it?
One should speak thoughtfully and avoid agitating others, especially those who are not receptive.
What is proper to be spoken as per etiquette of spiritual circles?
It involves quoting scripture and speaking what is supported by scriptural authority. It should be pleasurable to the ear, offering spiritual benefit and uplifting society.
How does scriptural foundation help in the mode of goodness conversation?
Following scripture ensures speech is truthful, beneficial, and elevates others, which is the penance of speech. Following the scriptures leads to self realization and mental austerity, guiding one towards sattva guna.
If I perform whimsical penance and austerity, won't I get the results?
Some perform penance to attract attention, gain respect, honor, and worship from others. Such penances are artificially performed and are considered to be in the mode of passion. The results are temporary, and while they can last for a time, they are not permanent.
Can you give an example of foolish penance?
One such example is Hiranyakashipu, who performed harsh penances to become immortal and kill the demigods. He prayed to Lord Brahma for immortality and power to kill the demigods. It shows that undertaking penances for impossible things is in the mode of ignorance.
But Hiranyakashipu was killed by the Supreme Lord.
When he was doing tapasya, he was so good that he did not harm even the ants. But as soon as he got the boon, he slipped from the mode of goodness and was envious to his own son.
I like engaging in charitable work, but I hardly care about the recipient. Does Vedic literature caution us to exercise discretion in this aspect also?
Vedic literature recommends charity to those engaged in spiritual activities, not indiscriminately. Charity should be given at places of pilgrimage, during eclipses, at month end, or to qualified brahmanas, Vaishnavas, or in temples.
I can still not figure out how charity can be bad.
Charity for sense gratification, intoxication, or gambling is discouraged, as it is in the modes of ignorance and passion. Logically, also, if such practices are incentivized by charity, it will wreak havoc in the society. I hope you can understand that without a discriminative intelligence based on scriptures, we cannot sustain goodness. Moreover, even if somebody gives charity for a good cause without consulting scriptures, he might later resent it and will not stay on the platform. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. I think one fact you may want to double check. You had a reference to Hiranyakashipu having performing austerities in the mode of goodness. Also, I think the fact that he was not even willing to kill the ants. I haven't heard of it. Doesn't mean that it's not there. But if you can double check that, and if you have any references, would appreciate to see it.
Sure, Prabhu.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna
very
Prabhuji.
much, Prabhu.
Like,
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Actually, that ant, we read in the purport of Srila Prabhupada that he was killed by Supreme Lord. And we often see this picture that he was surrounded by an ant hill. So while he was doing austerity, it appears that he was so good that he didn't even bother the ants while he was doing the penance. But as soon as uh, his desire was granted, he again slipped from that. Apparently, it seems that he was so good that he didn't even harm the ants which were eating his flesh. So that was the idea behind that. Kindly correct me if my understanding is wrong.
That was Valmiki, right? Valmiki was the one who was surrounded until.
Like when I think I heard there, like when he was performing penances,
It does say
he was.
that his flesh melted away, but not sure if I heard that it was because of the ants or the in case of Valmiki more it was termites than ants. My understanding of Hiranyakashipu is that his austerities were actually in the mode of ignorance because it falls in that category. He specifically performed it with the desire to kill Lord Vishnu. And I think the question is that why did he get all the powers? Is uh, uh, because these siddhis they're mechanical. So with or without the mercy of the Lord, one can avail of the siddhis, and Brahma is more or less obligated to give them if one performs the um, necessary penances. So Brahma was aware of the intentions of Hiranyakashipu. He was a well-established, like bad guy, but he was burning the universe by the flames emanating from his body. So Brahma was obliged to give it. But I think it's an interesting point. We're deviating. If you get any more details, um, send to me, specifically if you have explicit quotation as opposed to deductions about Hiranyakashipu performing austerity in the mode of goodness. Okay, but very nice presentation. I like the way you structured it across the conversation across the verses with references to them, and then use the format of a debate to bring forth these subtle points. Well done. Okay,
Thank you,
so
Prabhu.
we'll go
Hare Krishna.
to group 6. Thank you. We'll go to group 6, the last presentation.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. The topic for Group 6 presentation is Explain Om Tat Sat. In chapter 17, verses 23 to 28, Krishna talks about the meaning and the purpose of Om Tat Sat. Krishna explains to Arjuna that from the beginning of creation, the three words Om Tat Sat are used to indicate the Supreme Personality of Godhead or the Supreme Truth. One may ask, I'm sorry, indicate the Supreme Absolute Truth or the Personality of Godhead Krishna. One may ask, why Krishna? It is because throughout Bhagavad Gita, specifically 7.7, Lord Krishna says that there is no truth superior to him. In 15.15, Krishna also says that by all the Vedas I am to be known. So Om Tat Sat is the sound representation of Krishna, wherein Om is Shabda Brahman, supreme absolute truth. Om is all Om is also the means to attain the supreme. Therefore, most Vedic mantras and activities begin with Omkar. But oftentimes, Om is misunderstood to be formless or Nirakar. But Srila Prabhupada explains that the supreme truth addressed by Omkara is Purusha. And Krishna himself explains in Bhagavad Gita 7.8 that he is the sacred syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. Om Tat Sat is also in Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Srila Prabhupada explains that when one chants Hare Krishna, one gets the benefit of chanting Om. But when chants Om independently of Krishna, consciousness, one remains bereft of the variegated scriptural relationships or rasas that one realizes by chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That's why Hare Krishna mantra is known as Mahamantra, suggesting that there is no mantra superior to it, including Om. Moving forward, Tat in Sanskrit means it or that, referring to supreme truth. Tat also means to perform Vedic activities for Supreme Lord out of devotion. Sat means eternal. It also signifies that the result of performing Vedic activities with detachment and for the purpose of Supreme Lord is eternal. It is because the absolute nature of it is it is because of the absolute nature of the supreme truth. Therefore, all the objective of devotional service, the performer, and the work of devotional sacrifice are all sat or eternal. In the purport of chapter 17.23, it has been explained that faith, worship, sacrifice, charity, and foods are divided into three categories: the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, and are all conditioned and are contaminated by the modes of nature. Therefore, the results obtained from such activities performed for the satisfaction of the self under the modes of nature are both temporary and binding to the cycle of birth and death, causing living entity to remain entrapped in the material world or samsara. On the other side, when our faith, worship, sacrifice, charity, austerities are aimed at the Supreme, Om Tat Sat, they become the means for spiritual elevation, to perfect all activities and to make everything complete. Therefore, those who want to transcend the material contamination should perform the activities in conjunction with the Supreme Lord for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. This way, they can free from the defects of material nature and move from mode of goodness, sattva, to Shuddha sattva or transcendental goodness. Additionally, activities performed in devotion, surrendering the results to the Lord, even though not in accordance with scriptures, are still sat or eternal. Thus, we see that it gives us hope that although we are in Kali Yuga, not educated in Vedic knowledge, being mantrahinam, not able to recite the Vedic hymns correctly, kriyahinam, not able to perform the Vedic rituals correctly, we still can go back home, back to Godhead. I would like to end my presentation with three examples. First, of Brahmana in Vrindavan who were performing yajna sacrifice according to the Vedic injunctions but failed to recognize the divinity of Krishna Balram. Thus, they did not offer food items to them. Srila Prabhupada explains that although they presumed themselves advanced in Vedic learning, they were actually inexperienced fools. Second example is of gopis of Vrindavan who gave their foot dust to Krishna to cure his headache. Although not in accordance with scriptures, they did it in devotion for the pleasure of Krishna. Therefore, the gopis of Vrindavan are the topmost devotees of the Lord and are Veda personified. Third, of Srila Prabhupada, who was well versed in Vedic knowledge and whose Complete life was aimed at the Supreme Lord, or Om Tat Sat. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Shraddhi Mataji. Thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. And also like the way you brought it down to examples that we can understand by. So with this, we end the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And I will pause over here and see if there's anybody that has any comments, questions, any thoughts that they would like to share.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam. I do have a question, Prabhuji. We see Sanatan Dharma, we talk about sattvic food. Then how come sacrifices are allowed?
You mean like animal sacrifices?
Yes, Prabhuji, yes. By performing sacrifices,
So
I'm assuming they're talking about animal sacrifice.
no, I think what happens is that yajna is translated as sacrifice.
Oh,
So
okay.
yajna, like we perform so many yajnas, like Vivaha yajna,
Yeah.
then Putra yajna. So they're all yajnas. So uh, from the perspective of just translation, yajna gets translated to sacrifice. And then even then, not all sacrifices are. So even when you talk about like a sacrifice, not all sacrifices are animal sacrifices. Like in the fourth chapter, Krishna talks about so many kinds of sacrifices that the brahmacharis, they sacrifice the process of hearing to learn. The grahasthas sacrifice their sex desire or their wealth. The sannyasis, vanaprastha sacrifice the sex desire. So in this way, there's all these yajnas that are performed with a transcendental objective. Um, and I think the original question was that, how can sacrifices be? Uh, now, sacrifices, Vedas, there is a part of sacrifices that include animal sacrifices. And Srila Prabhupada explained this in a couple of ways. One, he said, is that the animal sacrifices were only allowed when the priests were qualified. And the animals that were sacrificed in the yajna, they were immediately elevated to the human form. So while they were seemingly being sacrificed, they were actually being benefited instead of going through the long process of transmigration. The second explanation he gave was that animal sacrifices were also done to prove the efficacy of the yajna. That they would take an animal and place it in the fire, and the animal would appear rejuvenated from the fire. So if they would take an old and a diseased animal to put it in the fire, the animal would actually appear healthy and with vitality. And that way, the priests could certify to the judgment, to the person who had engaged them, that yes, the fire that we ignited, the mantras that we chanted were bona fide. But since neither of these things are available right now, they're currently prohibited. And then the final thought is that Krishna himself says that uh, the performance of these, like the performance of the act of violence by the brahmanas, is actually considered as a blemish. So even though it is prescribed in the scriptures, it is karmkand, it is for material benefits, and it is still considered as a blemish. So even in the ages when it was recommended, the brahmanas who performed this kind of sacrifice were expected to perform other kinds of austerities to purify themselves.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes, Naval Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanva Pranam. Prabhu, you had mentioned in your lecture that if somebody performs an activity in the mode of ignorance as per the scriptures, that is better than performing any activity whimsically in the mode of goodness. So, like we see, on the other end of the spectrum, there is this agyat sukriti thing where a person gets benefit, although he's not intending to do something correctly, but he gets the benefit. Here, if somebody is acting even accidentally in the mode of goodness, but because again, mode of goodness as per the scriptures, so why is it that I mean, does he get any benefit out of it, or he spirals down only?
Thank you, Prabhu. Very good question. Yes, Prabhu, he definitely gets benefits. So even if one accidentally performs activities in the mode of goodness, they're practically speaking activities in the mode of goodness. Right? So as per the law of karma, they will achieve whatever the consequences of those activities may be. But Krishna makes this bold statement that better to perform your own duty imperfectly than another's duty perfectly. Right. So it's kind of a reflection on the fact that one's duty is as per what is prescribed in the scriptures. So better to be, if the scripture recommends you act in the mode of ignorance, then better to do that than to whimsically act in the mode of goodness. And from a more technical perspective, what we can understand is that when it is said that ignorance abiding by the scriptures is better than goodness whimsically, it is in terms of the lasting benefit that when is performing activity in the mode of ignorance as per the scriptures also contain within it the ability to purify the performer. So as long as the person is following the scriptures, the person will ascend the mode from uh, ignorance to passion to goodness. And if the person is performing goodness as whimsically, then while he may get the result of the goodness, but because he's performing it whimsically and the mind is a product of the modes of material nature, they will eventually pull him down. Like, so the example that I'd given was that somebody may be charitably inclined, right? And they're doing charity just because they have the inclination to do that, not because the scriptures is asking them. So they will get the benefit of giving in charity. But because they're driven by their mind, eventually the mind will ask them to seek some kind of recognition, reciprocation, some kind of fame, and then from there the charity will go to passion, that they will start giving charity with a desire for recognition. Then it will go to ignorance, that they will give it grudgingly, they would give it to an improper person. So just because the material nature of the mind. And I think the final part of the question was Agyat Sukriti. Agyat Sukriti is mostly in the context of accidental activities performed for devotional service, not so much the mode of goodness. So if somebody accidentally um, serves a Vaishnav, offers obeisances, chants the holy name, so those kind of accidental activities, and because bhakti is transcendental to the modes, they don't suffer from that effect of the degradation of the modes, right? So they eventually, ultimately by the mercy of a devotee. So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says the Girat Sukriti makes one qualified to receive the mercy of the devotee. And when one accepts that mercy, then one begins to practice bhakti. Right? So this is more for um, bhakti anumukh agyat sukriti.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Yes, Jyoti Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I know this question was not directed at me or my group, but I did find the reference regarding Hiranyakashyap being eaten by ants. If I could share my screen for a quick second. This is in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 3. Lord Brahma, when he comes to rescue he comes to see Hiranyakashyap, he finds that ants had devoured his skin, fat, flesh, and blood. And then Lord Brahma sprinkles water on him, and he comes back as a young man. And then, of course, he asks for the boons, which are like, which make him be the tamasic. And of course, the reason for his penances are given in that same chapter as well. But this is in Canto 7, Chapter 3.
Very good. Thank you for sharing, Mataji. Appreciate it.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, I'll do a summation of the 18th chapter, and that will essentially set us up for the next class, which would be primarily on the or entirely on the 18th chapter. So the 18th chapter, longest chapter in the Bhagavad Gita, 78 verses. It's the perfection of renunciation. So just like the second chapter is an overview, the 18th chapter is a summation. The second chapter is more of a thematic overview, and the 18th chapter we can actually establish correspondences to what Krishna has actually spoken in the preceding uh, uh, chapters. You can also do that from the second chapter because essentially it's the same theme. But the many of the people who have analyzed the Bhagavad Gita in details, they actually talk about they can establish these set of verses talk about these, and I do speak about it in the more detailed lectures that I uploaded or plan to upload on this. Okay, so the 17th chapter ended by Krishna affirming Om Tat Sat, right? That the highest goal is to work for him. In the 18th chapter, Krishna will summarize his teachings, and he will conclude the 18th chapter by reaffirming that the ultimate goal is to surrender unto him. So I'm checking because I see 17th here, slides on the 17th. Okay, so I may have made the mistake of copying a slide and not correcting it. So actually, this is the 18th, but it is the 18th chapter, and divided into 4 sections. The first section is the summation of the first set of chapters, the first 6 chapters, and the chapters 13 to 17. Right? So essentially, Bhagavad Gita divided in 3 sections. So the first 18 verses talk about it. Then the section 2 talks about the yoga ladder. In this, actually, uh, until verse 40, Krishna talks really about the modes of material nature. So it's kind of a continuation. It could be it can go in either of the 2 sections, right? But the modes of material nature represent the lowest rung of the yoga ladder, so it can be put here also. And essentially, the modes of material nature are spoken in chapters 14, 15, 16, and 17. So it could be put in section 1 also.
Yeah.
Section 3 is talking about Bhakti. And section 4 talks about the conclusion. So what I've done is given a very high level summary because it's difficult for me to give justice in summation. But in the lectures I have recorded lectures, I have gone in details over here. So the chapter begins with Arjuna asking a question which is very similar to the question he asked in the beginning of the 5th chapter, that which is
Good
better,
morning.
tyag or sannyas. And that was okay. Somebody needs to turn the mic off. Thank you. So Not sure who it is, but whoever it is, Prabhu, please turn your mic off. Okay, so this question between karma and between tyag and sannyas, it's one of the repeating themes in the Gita, both from Arjuna's perspective and Krishna's clarifying perspective. So in the summation, the catalyst is again the same question: that what is the difference between the two? And so there is those who renounce work and those who work with. Neeraj Prabhu, Neeraj Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Neeraj Prabhu. Okay, so this distinction between giving up work or working and giving up the results of the work, sannyas and karmafal tyag. So Krishna, he instead of answering the question directly, he uses this is what he has spoken and talks about uh, the fact that any work that is done is performed is controlled by five factors: by Paramatma, by the Jiva, Prakriti, body, the senses, and the modes of material nature. Now, at different points in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna had ascribed different causes of action. At one point, he had said that Prakriti kriyamanani gunakarmani sarvasha ahankar vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Right? Prakriti is only the executor of actions. Right? Another point, he said, na date kashyak pranam na uh, na date kashchit. That Krishna basically saying that I do not participate in the actions. So uh, all those were contextually given. Here Krishna is basically saying that the reason I said that none of them are the causes of the action, because all of them are the causes of the action. Right? So one's action is a symphony of these five things acting together. Right? And essentially it starts with the jiva, then it goes through the various stages, and finally it is executed by the body and with the permission of the super soul. Right? So the jiva is the immediate cause and the paramatma is the ultimate cause. And this understanding is important because it gives whatever Krishna wants us to take away from the Gita. Right? So it gives the jiva accountability for the action. If the jiva thought that all the actions are being performed by the Paramatma, it would say, well, the what can I say? Even if I'm performing sinful activities, it's a desire of the Paramatma. Or if he says it's done by the modes of material nature, he can say, what can I say? It's my nature. I am forced by my nature to act. But looking at the confluence of this, Krishna is saying, yes, the modes of material nature are playing a role, but the jiva is the cause of it. But at the same time, Krishna does not want the jiva to become proud that I'm the cause of all my actions, so I am the enjoyer of the results. So then Krishna is saying that you alone cannot do anything. The Paramatma has to sanction, the modes have to execute, the body has to actually engage, then only an action is performed. Right? So by this, Krishna is reconciling the different doers he has spoken about in the preceding chapters. Then Krishna also makes this distinction of that an action can either be performed according to the injunctions of the Vedas or by the mode or driven by the modes of material nature. And when it is performed by the injunctions of the Vedas, it's in the mode of goodness. And otherwise, it could be performed in the accidental mode of sattva. So when performed by the injunction of the Vedas, and this is the point made in chapter 17, it could be performed in the accidental mode of sattva. Otherwise, predominantly, actions performed by the modes of material nature are in the mode of passion or ignorance. So then Krishna now starts speaking about the yoga ladder, right? So in the previous verse, he has brought forward the the constituents of the action. He also establishes karma and gyan to be equivalent, right? He says that the fruits of the action are the same as the results of gyan, and the performance of or the jnani is the same as karmi. The person who's seeking knowledge is the same as person performing action. The process of karma is similar to that of Gyan. So he establishes their equivalence. And then thereby he establishes the equivalence between karma phal tyag and sannyas. Right? So after having done with that, Krishna then now talks about the yoga ladder. So depending on the modes of material nature, a, a conditioned soul occupies a particular varnashram. By the performance of the activities which is free from the desire to enjoy or free from the desire of ownership, one breaks this attachment to the modes and thereby attains the Brahman. Right? So this is the yoga ladder. At the lowest rung is Sakam Karma, which is performed according to the modes. Then Varnashram, which actually sets the stage for performing of duty, which results in Nishkam. Nishkam results in then Atma which is Brahman realization. And then there is also the maturing stage of Yukta Vairagya. So from the stage of Gyan, one moves to the stage of performing activities only for the pleasure of Krishna, which is Keval Bhakti. So this is the final chapter in which Krishna talks about bhakti. And here Krishna gives very specific instructions. Man manabha bhakto matyaji mam namaskaru. So he asks Arjun that if you are happen to be situated in the action platform of bhakti, this is what you should do. Everything you do for me, with the Paribhasha Sutra or the defining verse of the chapter. Where Krishna says, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I will deliver you from sinful reactions. Do not fear. So this is the final instructions of Krishna to Arjun, that you had presented so many doubts that you would be contaminated by sin of killing your friends and relatives, and you do not know what needs to be done. So I will give you all the answers, and don't worry about anything else. So Krishna presents bhakti as the final platform, and verse 65, Manmanabad Bhakto, is the process. Verse 66 is considered to be the emperor verse, and he speaks about the how to execute bhakti. 66 is the or what to do to execute bhakti. 66 is how to execute this. So the conclusion is that the pure devotee does not love, and they don't really care for his protection. Right? Even though Krishna promises that I will protect you, do not fear, the devotees are not even concerned whether uh, Krishna protects or not. They're only Krishna. So this brings us to the end of the 18th chapter, the end of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita began with Arjun's doubts, and then he surrenders to Krishna, becomes a disciple of Krishna, and Krishna then gives him many authority, but you're the soul. Arjun then proceeds to ask about the more intrinsic aspects of the philosophy, the interplay between karma and gyan, sakam and nishkam. So Krishna till the point that Arjun says that, my dear Krishna, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory by your mercy. I am now firm and free from doubts and am prepared to act according to your instructions. So this is what we pray that we be. After we read the Bhagavad Gita, we also aspire to attain that platform. If not with a complete absorption of Arjun, but a little bit more reading of the Bhagavad Gita. So the conclusion is that they just had glorification of Bhagavad Gita. So he glorifies the listener, and anybody who listens becomes free from envy and sinful reactions, because by listening one understand what needs to be done, and they will set the person in the stage of being free from envy. Then he talks about one who studies, right? So listening means just sitting and listening. Studying is like studying for Bhakti Sastri, which means that one meditates upon it, and Krishna gives him an even higher platform. Right? He says that he worships me by his intelligence. So when Prabhupada would say that Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam is like having Krishna in your house, this is what he means. That when you read the Bhagavad Gita, it is as good as going up to the altar and offering incense and key lamp and others. There you're worshipping the deity through dravya, through material things. Here you're worshipping Krishna by intelligence. And then Krishna glorifies the preacher. Right? So this is successively greater levels of affection from Krishna. One who listens, one who studies, and one who preaches. So for preaching, Krishna says pure devotional service is guaranteed. What else is guaranteed? That they will come back to me. Why? There is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will ever be one more dear. So Krishna uses superlatives that never will be anyone more dear. So this is also setting us to follow the path and instruction of Srila Prabhupada. Right? So we all had this journey where we were at one point we listened to the Bhagavad Gita, sat in a class, then we had some more interest, so we studied the Bhagavad Gita, we began to practice what it said, and then we began to explain what Prabhupada has explained. So the last section of the 18th chapter is Sanjay's realization to Dhritarashtra. Because if you remember, the Bhagavad Gita started with the conversation between Sanjay and Dhritarashtra. So Sanjay says that wherever there is a master of mystics and wherever there is Arjun, there will also be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. Right? Essentially, what Sanjay is saying that wherever there is a Lord and his devotee, all these things will happen. Right? And that brings us to the conclusion of the 18th chapter. So this is a summary that Arjuna asks the difference between giving up work and giving up attachment to work. And Krishna consistently he glorifies working without attachment. Then he provides a summation of all that he has spoken. Finally, then a summation of the last 6 chapters. Then speaks about the middle 6 chapters, which is Bhakti, which leads into Krishna summarizing the Bhagavad Gita through the glorification of Bhakti as the highest state. One hearing the Bhagavad Gita with attention. So this is the summary of the 18th chapter. all the illusions are gone, and one is ready to act as per the instructions of Krishna. Right. So this is the Falstuti. So this is the end of the Bhagavad Gita's discussion. Read reach the end of Bhagavad Gita, and both in terms of reading or discussions or realization. So just like when you talk to a person, even though you may be talking about the same topics, but you may explore different aspects. The same thing happens with Bhagavad Gita. Of the Bhagavad Gita. Um, as I mentioned that I have started to upload my lectures. I think to upload the remaining lectures in the next few days, and the next week we will take the presentation on the 18 chapters. It's a longer chapter, so we'll have all the groups doing the presentation. I'll send the topics shortly after that. And the week after that, preparation. Then we will start with our fourth module with time.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. There was one lecture that you uploaded, I
But
think.
I'm not able to on the laptop.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. You said there is one lecture that I uploaded.
Yeah, but the audio is not available after 22 minutes.
Yes, thank you for pointing out. So I fixed the video after 22 minutes, and then I recorded a new lecture beginning from 20 from the point after that.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
So the recording software is a little buggy. I think it happened before also. I'm not sure how to fix it, but thank you so much for pointing out. Okay. So if there are no more questions, we will end over here. Vaishnavinda Shila
Ija,
Prabhupada ki jai.
Ija.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare
Yadhai Gaur Premanand. Hari Om.